Happy Monday, everyone. It's John Lorden here with another episode of Brain Scratch Case Cracked. Hope you all had a nice weekend. Let's go ahead and jump into another mystery. This one is called Who Killed Connie Gauthier? Woonsocket is the sixth largest city in the state of Rhode Island, with more than 40,000 residents. It's described as a vibrant urban community that blends exciting city life with small-town comfort, an eclectic mix of the old and the new as described on their city website. However, in 2016, that eclectic mix came together in a tragic way. March 2016. Connie Gauthier was 81 years young. Known to be a strong-willed and independent woman, she was born in Woonsocket and a graduate of Woonsocket High, class of 1952. Outside of moving to New York in her early adult life and taking trips around the world, including visiting India and China, she primarily lived and would die in her hometown. Connie had many careers throughout her life, including working in administration for the Woonsocket School Department, acting as a chairwoman for the Woonsocket Personnel Board, and at one point even working as a private investigator. She also volunteered her time to several organizations, including the Over 50 Softball League, and enjoyed playing piano and taking music lessons. She also loved animals and driving around in a little gray sports car. The morning of March 23rd, Connie's physical therapist was worried that she couldn't reach her. Now, the story has two versions here. According to police statements, the therapist called them for a welfare check and they went to Connie's home. According to her neighbors and several publications, the therapist actually drove to Connie's home and knocked on the door. There was no answer. The 21-year-old son of Connie's next-door neighbor, Tyler Grennan, noticed the therapist standing there and the fact that Connie hadn't answered the door. Tyler walked over and they started investigating. He looked into a window and he saw Connie's foot sticking out from under a mattress. Chairs were overturned and the bedroom looked as if it had been ransacked. Soon, Connie's home was being treated as a crime scene. Police tape was put up, a mobile crime lab parked in front of her home, and investigators and forensic experts came and went. The usually quiet neighborhood was overtaken by the investigative efforts, and neighbors watched in shock as a woman they described as a friendly neighbor was now the center of a homicide investigation. Connie had been brutally stabbed over 60 times with 2 knives. When she was found, it was estimated she had been dead for approximately 18 hours. We believe this is an isolated incident, said Acting Police Chief Michael Lemoyne. We really don't believe that anyone else should be concerned at this point. Neighbor Irene Mayer stated, I want to know what really happened to her. Somebody is involved and I would like to know who it is. Police said they believe Connie knew the person who killed her based on evidence left at the scene, but stayed tight-lipped about what that evidence was. A week later, law enforcement caught wind of something odd happening in the neighborhood. Tyler Grennan was asking neighbors for video from their home security cameras, and according to what police were told, he wasn't asking nicely. Police decided to bring Tyler in for questioning, but then something even stranger occurred. Tyler fled from the station, running across the street and jumping into Blackstone River. He was recaptured and charged with witness intimidation, obstructing a police officer, and escape from lawful custody. He was released on $3,000 bail and ordered to stay away from his neighbors. A week after that, there was still no announcement about a suspect or any formal charges being filed in Connie's murder. The police held a meeting with the community to keep them updated on the investigative efforts. Months would pass, and soon it was a year since the crime. The press would kick around the story again, noting that the killer was still free. More stories came from the community about what a good person Connie was. NBC 10 included quotes from a neighbor named Charisse. She was my friend. She watched Tyler grow up. Tyler's mother was now speaking to the press and stated that the two of them found Connie's body inside her home. It hurts every day. It hurts every single day what we had to go through. She insists that Tyler had nothing to do with Connie's murder. He loved her so much, he'd do anything for her. When asked why he fled from the police station, she said they were threatening to put him in jail for the rest of his life, and he was scared. When asked about him speaking to neighbors about their surveillance systems, she said that he only went to one neighbor's house and he was just trying to find the vicious killer. Tyler pled no contest to the escape from lawful custody charge. I haven't found strong information, but I believe the other charges were also dropped. When police were asked about the case, they stated that they were waiting for more evidence to be processed. In June of 2017, Michael Lemoyne, no longer the acting police chief but now a detective captain, spoke to the press about the case and stated that they were adding more detectives to the case. He commented that Connie's lack of close family and friends made the investigation difficult. They didn't have a good source to tell them all the people that she was associating with. She didn't seem to confide in many people, so if she had an acquaintance that nobody knew about, that would be the person we want to speak to, said Lemoyne. He also mentioned a backup at the state crime lab and that evidence was still being processed, but stated that they had received all DNA evidence and it was being evaluated. Of course, they found Connie's DNA, but there was also DNA from an unidentified male found. Lemoyne also acknowledged the community's concerns about the case. We understand their concerns and their fears, and we're working diligently to try to solve this. The longer it goes, it is more difficult, but persistence will pay off. The public would have to wait another year for the answer. Was Tyler responsible for this? Are you hoping that we hear those two magic words that have been popping up on Case Cracked so much recently? Here they come. Parabon Nanolabs was hired for about $1,500, and they created a profile of the unknown man and began tracing his genealogy. Surprisingly, it wasn't Tyler's DNA. The sample led them to a woman who was the mother or daughter of a new suspect. She had several sons, but one of those sons had another intersection with this case. Matthew DeSalt and Tyler Grennan knew each other. July 2018. The authorities brought Matthew in, saying they wanted to talk about a breaking and entering case. They pressed him on Connie's murder, and Matthew apparently gave a few different versions of what happened. What was consistent was that he admitted he was there with Tyler, says that Tyler was responsible for the attack on the 81-year-old, and that he just helped Tyler stage it to look like a break-in. Investigators noticed a tattoo on Matthew, a Grim Reaper with skulls and a gravestone. On the gravestone was the number 63. When they asked Matthew what it meant, he couldn't really explain. Their theory is that 63 is the actual number of stab wounds that Connie suffered. They wrote up a search warrant for Matthew's apartment and seized a bag of knives, cell phones, and a camera. Matthew and Tyler had been charged with murder and conspiracy. The motive for killing Connie is still unknown. However, police are convinced it was staged to look like a robbery. On August 1st, Matthew's 21st birthday, Tyler was released on $50,000 bail. Tyler's attorney says he is looking to clear his name. Matthew, still in custody, has a hearing due at the end of this month. His attorney states that he has a clean record and maintains his innocence. Quote, "The information from Parabon certainly broke the case," Lemoyne said. Matthew was never even a person of interest in this case before his DNA was found at the scene. When he finally started coming clean, he admitted to investigators that with her dying breath, Connie reached up and grabbed him. Not sure why he would have been that close to her during her death if he wasn't involved. Case cracked. I know we still have trials to go through on this, but obviously we've got a DNA match that puts Matthew at the scene. We then have Matthew's story that ties to Tyler. I'm curious to see if there will be any more physical evidence to come out of this, if they do identify which knives were used, and if maybe they did find those with the bag of knives that they took from Matthew's home, something along those lines. But another interesting twist, another case that got a big kick in the pants thanks to Parabon Nanolabs. Of course, we're also left with what is the motive in this case. It's really hard to understand. Did Tyler possibly do something that Connie saw and Tyler was afraid that Connie would tell his parents or something along those lines? Or was it really maybe not a great relationship? I mean, they lived right next door to each other. Did he really not like this woman for some reason in particular? Or possibly, was there something of value in the home that investigators just haven't figured out or didn't know about that was taken? I don't know. And quite honestly, I don't know if we ever will come to understand the motive. We've got all kinds of legal hoops and hijinks to go through when it comes to this case. Before we get to our comment review from last week's episode, I have several new patrons to thank, starting with Amanda Joy Mlinarchik, hope I'm saying that right, Lindsay Ann Minner, and Cambrina Dillon. Thank each and every one of you for supporting me on Patreon. I truly appreciate it. If you guys want to support me on Patreon, PayPal, or by buying Lord and Arts merchandise, you can do all of that at the new lordandarts.com. So let's get to the comments. Last week's episode was The Many Lives of Mr. Kondo. Many of you really seem to appreciate that one, and thank you for that, because it was a lot of work putting that one together. It was one of the longer episodes. I feel like I'm saying that every week now, like the episodes of Case Cracked are getting longer and longer. But quite honestly, I like it. I kind of like getting these stories done right and not feeling as rushed as the old Case Cracked episodes were. So I appreciate it, and it seems like you guys are so far as well. Mary Turner says, "This man was pure evil. Such a sad story for these women and their children, even his own dad and brother. This story is a mind twist." Absolutely, Mary. It is. I'm still thinking about aspects of this story a week after I filmed that thing. It's there's so much to it on so many levels, but the interpersonal dynamics of it are what really make it quite a bit different from a lot of the other stuff we talk about here on the channel. Even with today's case, we could learn out that it's something very simple, that, Tyler knew that she had a box of jewelry, and, there was a couple of particular pieces that he wanted to take so he can go and sell them or something along those lines. There could be a very simple dynamic to the story that we covered today. But for The Many Lives of Mr. Kondo, when we're talking about Donnie Rudd, no, the interpersonal weavings of this man and his lies are so intricate. And I don't quite get why he lied in some ways, where it's almost like he should have known he was going to be caught at some point. So why are you setting yourself up to eventually fail with this line of lying in this way? I really don't know. On to Mick M. Not sure if you covered it here, but weren't Donnie and his twin supposed to have very high IQs? Not that it has any bearing on sociopathy, but it's a curious detail. Mick M., you are absolutely right. There was a really good investigation done on this. I actually included it in the links of sources in the video. I had to pay to see it. I think it was like a $2 rental on YouTube or something, but it was really good, and it really did a great job of getting all those kind of interpersonal dynamics that I was talking about. It was a major source for this episode of Case Cracked. But in that, yes, his twin actually commented about it, his twin Ronnie, and said that when they had their IQs tested, Donnie was around 140 and Ronnie was around 150. So both of them very, very smart. Obviously, it seems like men that decided to live their lives in very different ways, though. Gail Clark, hopefully a pre-sentence report will be done that will require medical records. What a wasted life. Cannot be happy with his successes. Instead, he wreaks havoc everywhere he goes, and there are so many silent victims in this case. So, Gail, I think you're referring to him supposedly battling cancer or not. And yes, because he's in custody during part of this, they're actually seeking to get his medical records from within the jail's hospital system. So I don't think it's going to be that difficult. I think they're going to get those records. And really the big question is going to be, does he have cancer or not? Outside of that, you're right. There are many silent victims in this case. When you hurt other people the way that he did, and especially for these prolonged periods of time, it ripples. It ripples throughout the lives of their family and their friends. I mean, think about these children that had this kind of weird ongoing game of trying to figure out. It's almost like they knew he was bad, but they were trying to figure out how bad. And it's almost like that game has still gone on. And these are women that are, have lived long, full lives at this point, but they've had to deal with this kind of constantly ongoing. As recently as all the new developments on this, it's like, oh God, I turn on the TV and hey, there's our old stepdad again. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a really good point. Many, many victims in this case. Sharon Jones, good case, John. It took way too long to stop this man, and cancer or not, he needs to die in prison. I feel zero sympathy. Sharon, really interesting point, and that's why I wanted to include this comment, because it made me think about it as well. Him having cancer or not, I don't think that should affect his sentencing at all either. I'm not sure how reasonable it is to believe that that actually occurs or not. I can't think of a judge sitting there saying, well, he killed someone, but yeah, it was 40 years ago, and look, he's an old man and he's at the end of his life. Yeah, let me take a couple years off. I don't know that that's how a judge's mind worked. I just really don't know for myself. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think the diagnosis should really affect his sentence one way or another. Him lying about his diagnosis, I do believe should affect it, because it's if he's lying, it's a very obvious emotional play, and his lawyer is kind of taking part in that on his behalf. So I do think that it should be considered, especially in that direction, if he is lying. DJR says, wonder why he didn't have Noreen cremated. Yeah, DJR, I was thinking that myself, because Noreen was really what cracked this case. She is what held the evidence to really make all of this happen and to take this guy out of play and stop him from harming other people. So it would have been a whole different situation if she was cremated. Who knows in terms of her family and what she had told her family about how she'd be treated if she ever died. It could be that it would have looked far too odd for her to be cremated in terms of the other family. I've seen some things before where family kind of has arguments about situations like that. I think he was just thinking that, I've got everyone convinced this was a car accident. If the cops didn't bust me, I just feel like he got away with it. Like he felt like he got away with it. And he was so confident in it that I don't think he needed to worry about it that much. And think about how this life goes. I mean, it sounds like he went and shot a woman also after giving her a check that would have likely have bounced. He really got away with so many things that you have to imagine from his perspective, from his point of view, his ego is just inflating and growing year after year as he's getting away with these lies and all this deceit and these crimes. So yeah, I think he just missed that one. Maybe if he had the extra 10 IQ points that his brother Ronnie did, he would have thought twice about that. But I'm thankful he didn't, because someone needed to put a stop to all this. And effectively, in a very bit of a dark way, Noreen was able to do that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, everyone. Take care, and I will see you back here on the Lord and Arts channel.